All right. In the world of automation this last week, there were a bunch of things that happened. I don't think that the release and announcement cadence of defined individual features were as crazy this week as they were last week. But in contrast, this week seemed to kind of have some of the more macro, big picture, zoomed out things going on. And the thing I wanted to talk about was the Keap/Thryv product showcase update event that happened a couple of days ago. I was there, you weren't, but I was texting you about it. And we had a handful, probably like 4 or 5 Monkeypod members that I saw, but could have been more of them there, but that I saw in the chat kind of engaging with things. Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about that. What would you have expected from like a Keap-Thryv product update in the spring of 2026?
Is this a hypothetical or do you want me to guess? Yeah, best case scenario is any feature or announcement that is giving an indication that authorities and the pacing of product updates are matching those of its competitors.
So not just their bubble or like we had a pet projects that felt like fun, but we know that we are maybe losing or are at risk of losing on this feature or this part of the experience. So we shorted up or we blew it out of the water. That's so interesting that you said it that way, because I don't usually, like, if you go to a product preview or an advisory meeting or something, like, I don't always think about it as like that really serious competition, but maybe that would be a healthy way to think about it, is to know, okay, the field is busier than it ever was. What parts of the experience or the feature set are actually not just macro level, but specifically kind of a threat? Do you want to say what the opposite would be? Right. Like what would be the not good version of such an event?
The not good version would be to talk about completely different products altogether.
I think that, to be frank, I experienced what I experienced in the call, and then I also had some DMs with some of our members afterwards just to kind of check in. And I did categorize this particular session in the good, bad, and ugly category of commentary. And honestly, it made me a little sad, because Keap and Infusionsoft brought us together as the Monkeypod community. Of course, we've put effort into diversifying the number of platforms or the way we support people with our technology tools. I did find it a little sad and disappointing, because my hope is always that they're going to be successful and that they're going to have that competitive win that you kind of referred to a second ago, or that we can feel that they're a little adrift, and hope desperately that they can correct course. And unfortunately, I don't think that they did that in this particular product update and product showcase kind of call. And I think that was pretty evident specifically as you watched traditional Keap users, so people who were Keap users first or are still only Keap users as opposed to what's traditionally known as the Thryv products, and the commentary that they kind of had in the chat. Yeah, it was the macro kind of sentiment, and again, it doesn't give me any pleasure to say this, it's just, it didn't land particularly well with the people they were trying to hype up. And again, I've categorized that into kind of good, bad, and ugly, and would be happy to share those things.
All right, let's hear the details. I want to hear your categorization, because you are, in my opinion, you're very fair and technical and optimistic all at the same time. So when you put them into good, bad, ugly buckets, I think that's really valuable.
Get to 2 Keap-specific feature updates, like things that felt lacking, that because they demonstrated some progress was yes, they do know some of the things that we want improvements on, and are putting engineering kind of capabilities into the Keap, what was historically the Keap portion of that product collection. Now, when we get into the bad and ugly part, it kind of buried the lead. The good news about Keap-specific features didn't happen until 25 or 35 minutes into the session. So the people who were bring me Keap updates were already kind of feeling some things. So I wish they had done it earlier in the call, or at least framed up an agenda so that they could know that this good news was coming eventually. But 2 Keap-specific product updates that they showcase that I personally really want to try as soon as I can get access to them. The first is a new reporting center. This is actually the first feature that seems to have been designed with what is traditionally Thryv and traditionally Keap together. And while I'm not sure that a whole lot of people are going to get value from it right away, it is a really cool signal of how the products could eventually come together. And what this feature is a reporting center where elements of Keap interactions, specifically things like email deliverability reports and pipeline reports, are going to show up natively inside of the Thryv Marketing Center kind of dashboarding interface. Because a lot of the earliest integrations they've been telling us about are still taking advantage of the APIs between the two. It's not really doing things natively yet. But the idea that what you do in Keap could show up on a dashboard in Thryv kind of directly and natively is very cool. I did find myself initially asking like, but why? Like, if you configure them in the separate versions of the tool, why do you care? I think the reason you care is because maybe not every type of user has to log into both products all the time, right? If you're responsible for deploying web forms to a website, if you're responsible for designing the onboarding campaign or the birthday celebration email and these types of things, that might make you, the Keap interface user. But if you're responsible for making sales calls or for running a business or for soliciting reviews, maybe it's dumb to think that people should be users of both kind of styles of tool at the same time. So, as a Keap certified partner, you might make somebody's email journey over there in Keap, but then give the business owner the permission to, no need to look behind that curtain. It's working its magic automatically, but here's some information about those journeys surfacing up on the tool that you actually do log into every day as you run elements of your business. So I think it's early days, but I do think that this particular feature of putting a reporting center in Thryv that reflects activities carried out by Keap is a cool indication of the seed of hope for what could happen in integration, or not even integration, but like amalgamation later.
And I think you've always been, even just in our conversations about business, you're definitely, because you're an agency owner, whereas I'm a freelancer.
I'm not Monkeypod,
in our side jobs, right? So like you are often discussing things in terms of like roles and visibility, whereas that's not really like, I'm more of like, I put blinders on as a freelancer, like this is my job. And so I think that's really neat because it's not even like this is my role and this is my role. You're talking about like hierarchical caring, right? Like a business owner doesn't need to know how to build automations.
Yes.
Business owner needs to make intelligent decisions. And depending on which app you're using or where you are, it's hard to see and get a pulse on like prioritizing projects and marketing and where you're going to spend your time and dollars. So I think that's really cool. That's awesome that things are kind of starting to pass back and forth, because a marketing center is more of like a big picture where we're caring and sort of amalgamating all that information. So versus like the CRM where I'm physically manipulating information.
One piece of evidence that deeper thing is coming in the future. This is like the first little shimmer of that. And I really like that. The second Keap update that I think falls into the good category speaks to what you were saying in the opening of like, what feature or improvement or strategy is actually taking on what the newer competitors are doing better. And this second thing is related to primarily SMS, but also telephony, like the ability to do a VoIP call, like a sales phone call directly from inside of the Keap interface, which is especially helpful if you're using it for pipelines. And I will give Keap credit for being, fairly innovative to have SMS broadcasting and texting and stuff integrated. But I also think that there was this, as the competitors got better at it as well, Keap started to feel more janky again. Like, oh, why do I have to have a marketing number separate from a one-to-one number? Why are there features of the telephone service that only work on the mobile app when the mobile app really doesn't have all the same things as the desktop browser version and these types of things? And the changes to SMS and telephony was, I think it was kind of pitched in the call like a big, this humongous thing happened. I saw it as more refinement, which I think is actually better. Like, I'm not disappointed that it wasn't like a big blowout. Everything looks different. I think it would have been better to frame it as a refinement. But the refinements are things like the telephone dialer and text message dialer can hover over your interface and be moved around, right? If you're trying to add a note to a contact record, but you want to keep the phone call, you can move it to a different place. If you want to initiate a one-to-one SMS, maybe you're not doing broadcasting or automated SMS, but you're a salesperson working a pipeline and you want to send a real human follow-up, you can initiate that from within the contact record. You can continue conversations from within the contact record. And if an inbound text message comes in and a contact doesn't exist yet, you can rapidly on the fly create a contact record from that, assuming it's not spam, from that cold inbound SMS. That's not revolutionary, as in like they've made the whole thing look and feel different. But if there are reasons that people weren't using it, it's like they've knocked out a bunch of those things, which I think is good on them. I don't think that there's access to everybody yet, but I'm hoping to get access to that soon to kick around and see if it's as good as it looked on the call. Okay, let's talk about the bad. Again, everybody's got an opinion, and this is mine.
If someone has been watching the video for this long, they want your opinion.
The whole thing was pre-recorded, which means that it was very polished, right? The president of Thryv's operations did the cold opening, and then there was a case study from a partner, and then there was a product leader who kind of queued up and passed back and forth. But it was really, really obvious that every single video was pre-recorded. Great that they made editorial choices, but you could see the cuts when something was edited for time or style or information and these types of things. To me, the event felt more like a watch party with a chat than like a genuine presentation or webinar. So right or wrong, historically, Keap has been a very personable brand, right? And partners and to some extent customers kind of expect like some real human access. And the edited playlist party type of vibe, while it effectively gave us the information, I'm not sure is like historically what people are used to in terms of the access and personality that they expect. And, you know, if it was me, I can see the benefit to having like a product manager who's like a coding nerd, you know, give a recorded and edited video. I think it would have been really cool to have a hybrid approach, right? Don't try to make a recorded thing look live. Get a high personality MC from the company to do a live cold open, to actually hype the group, to actually see the chat in real time. And then if it's going to be a watch party, fine, get that product manager to pre-film the video, but then just be honest about it and have that live MC and say, now we're going to throw to a 2.5-minute video from the product manager in charge of SMS.
Right, which they've done. They've done that at conferences and it's appreciated. We're like, oh my gosh, there's people here that care, but also like they're not going to bring in the developer that, you know, coded this, you know, 6 months ago. They're going to have the people that are really familiar with it make a demo, and then in person the event are the people that are the hands-on people that interact with the customer.
So totally recorded. It feels like we could have just watched a playlist on our own. It's totally live, and you've got live demos with internet connections going wrong and a long-winded person taking 50% more time than they were allowed. I get why there's problems with both extremes. I think it could have been kind of cool to mash up the hybrid of the two. So yeah, I think that they missed the mark a little bit on personality, and especially when they need to teach us, you know, when there's a perception that they've got something to prove, right? Like our partner's going to stay, our customer's going to stay. And then the third category, the ugly category, is that the reactions in the chat weren't good. Like there were a lot of people who were saying like, wait, what is this about? Who is this for? All you're doing is talking about Thryv. I'm a Keap customer. And I get it that they might say, look, we've owned Keap for 1.5 or 2 years. They're one and the same. Well, that's your internal talk, right? Like that's what you're wishing for around your boardroom table or your marketing designers in the company. If you haven't proven that externally yet, people are going, so you might say, well, we're one and the same, or we're merging the brands, or of course, people who have Keap Ultimate are also going to want Marketing Center at Thryv. That might be true in your like ideal design, but the comments from the audience made it pretty evident to me that people aren't receiving the message that way yet, right? So there was lots of like, who is this for? They didn't frame it up with an agenda that said, we're going to talk about the Thryv story, then we're going to talk about the Keap story, then we're going to show you some new features, and then we're going to show you how you can make these two products talk together. Like they didn't give an agenda, so people were kind of being towed through this story where they're like, wait, am I being sold to right now? Am I being sold to something that I already have, that I could have, that I should have had for free? But people just, the vibe was pretty confused and a bit of angry and no excitement, right?
What's extra funny about that is that it was pre-recorded, so they actually had complete capabilities to be like, at 3 minutes and 42 seconds, the intro is done, and we're going to demonstrate Thryv products for a couple minutes. Then at 47 minutes and 12 seconds, that's when we're going to tell you what we've actually done to the Keap product, because it's pre-recorded. So they should have known what the chapters are. That's the frustrating part, is like, we are small business owners and operators. We have stuff to do and a very, very limited time amount to do it. So I would have no problem with pre-recorded if they were like, we're going to talk about the actual Keap feature updates at 47 minutes and 12 seconds. That way I can work on a client project and not pay attention for the first 45 minutes and then come back and be like, okay, I'm locked in, and then go back to what I have to get done.
So this was a big news item from this week because it was hyped and we were all hopeful. And like, again, I'm not trying to be mean or negative. I think that a lot of this feedback and a little bit of disappointment that might be in my voice is because all I want is for them to get it right and make people happy and grow their market share and invest in their product. And I'm a little disappointed they didn't quite make it. What about you? I know you weren't there live at the event, but I know that it was discussed in the private community. I know there were some screenshots that circulated around through some private chats on this item.
I think that Thryv/Keap/Thryv Keap, I think they have a huge opportunity to open their ears harder than they ever have and make some real significant changes. Not just, you know, hey, this overlay for your dialers now is possible. But I'm talking about like systemic foundational changes that the marketplace is hungry for. This is not like an opinion thing. This is not, I want the tool to work like this for me because I think I know what's best. I just think there's a huge sentiment from the very big and loving partner community that now has been embracing other tools in a very agnostic fashion. But like it's like, like my first love. So like I want my first love to do well, and maybe we can be friends, So there's opportunity, and you and I both want those opportunities to be grabbed.
I think it's great that we just leave it there and have Keap be the main news item for this week's Last Week in Automation segments, and we'll get back into a broader variety of tools and news next week. I do just want to point out that we listed a whole bunch of events this week as well. That was the subject of our Monday email and video. The very next Member Mingle is on Thursday the 30th, so that is next week. And this one is at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, where I live in the Toronto area. You can use a time zone converter to figure out what that is all around the world. This is on purpose because we have friends and members in Australia and New Zealand. We at least a couple times a year want to make sure that we set a schedule on a time that they don't have to stay up to midnight to see us. So every one of our members, including those in North America who should be getting ready for bed, are welcome to attend that event, because I'm sure that our around the world friends would like to see you as well. But please join us 9 p.m. here in the Toronto, New York time zone. That'll put it around lunchtime in Australia and New Zealand as well.
And 6 p.m. West Coast time. No, that's like totally doable. You don't have to be an Australian. Like, come hang out with us. Yeah, the Member Mingle, that's for members. Yeah. So if you're not a member, you should totally join and hang out with the cool kids. It's the Cool Kids Club. That's what I say all the time because it's true. And then obviously the Vancouver Web Summit is not our event. So if you're in the
horseshoe table in the hotel lobby is our event. I would love to see everybody. It's finally sunny here, so I'm gonna go outside this weekend. I'll see you next week. Bye.